Hey everybody, this is man. That was a little high. That was a little high pitched. I get a little excited, man. I get a little excited, Jason. Hey everybody, this is Scott Utchbath with Agent Mastermind. Super excited to have you guys here. Man, I don't know about you guys, but I love this guy, Jason. I got to meet Jason down in Tampa. This guy's on fire. Him and his partner, with Shred Media, they're just literally crushing it right now. You got every time I turn on the computer, man, everywhere I go, like I could sit here and just ask you questions because I know you're in the know and you're hanging around people, and so I'm just honored to just be in your presence, man. So good job with what you guys have done in a very short period of time. And like I said before the call, I'll say it publicly, man. I talk about you guys all the time and what you can do with video marketing and branding in such a short amount of time. It's just phenomenal. And you guys have literally proven it hands down. So congratulations, man. If I was going to give an award for like the #1 marketer of the year, dude, it'd be you guys. I'm just telling you, you guys stand out every time I think about like who's done what in the industry, and it's been you guys. So congratulations, man.
Well, thanks, Scott, man. I really appreciate that coming from you. Very just humbled for you to say that. So I enjoyed hanging out with you for a little bit down in Tampa and get to know you a little bit more. So in which you did an awesome job on stage and talking about this industry and what you're doing. And it's good to align yourselves with people that are like-minded and really look at the industry the same way you do.
Absolutely, man. I appreciate that. I appreciate the kind words. So it was an amazing group, man. I think the best part was just the cocktail hour before, not because of the drinks, but just all the people that were there, and like you can actually talk and get to know people. So if you guys ever get a chance to hang out with these guys at Shred Media or anywhere they're at, if they're there, it's probably a pretty kick butt place to be. So just saying, they're all over the place.
Thanks, man.
All right,
yeah,
man.
no.
So yeah. So you since you're the master of branding, master of social media, like what do you got for us today? I love. By the way, my son has probably watched every episode 6 times of Office, so you couldn't have picked a better picture.
Thanks. Yeah. So, branding, like kind of we had our, conversations down in Tampa about, the mastermind and about the value you're trying to bring to your audience and everything, and loan officers trying to bring to agents and others. Is branding is huge, and that's something that we focus on quite a bit at Shred. We focus it on an agency level with our clients. We really look into deep and just not in a bragging way, but there's a reason why the 3 out of the top 4 lenders in the country have chosen Shred to be their agency, and that was because of the whole brand positioning and understanding branding to the modern consumer and what that actually means. But and actually, we were talking before we went live. We talked about Gary Vaynerchuk and his, recent talk at Fuse and about branding, and he focuses on that quite a bit. But as you and I were talking about in Tampa, and what I heard a lot of questions this past couple weeks in Vegas was like, where do I get started? How do I develop a brand? What does that even mean? And so so I know I sent you some bullet points. So I have this basically the 6 questions, and I'm going to go through these and we'll talk about branding, and then would love to get into, whoever's on to get into, if you have questions, go ahead and ask them, and we'll get to those at the end, because that is honestly like the biggest question I get is, how do I get started? What is brand, and what does that really, mean? And what are the steps? And do you have a framework, and blah, blah, blah? Because from my experience, most people have a misunderstanding of what brand actually is, and they get confused between branding and brand. And so I want to get into that real quick, and then we'll go over the 6 questions and take this, to really give people kind of a jumping off start of brand, because some people may think they don't have a brand, but realize, yeah, they do, but they just don't know how to advertise it or publicize it and get into that piece of it. So
I love it. And I'm going to let you go. I'm going to drop just for 2 seconds. I'm going to go live on our Facebook group, but I got to do it through a way of Zoom. So I'm going to be gone for like 30 seconds. So I'll let you go, and I'll be right back.
Awesome. All right. So cool. So when it comes down to it, going back to what I just said is understanding what a brand actually is. And so where the confusion is people think about brand as like, okay, it's my tagline, it's my color scheme, it's the biggest one is logo. Like, hey, I'm trying to create a brand, so I need help getting a logo. And here's the thing is the brand is what creates everything. Everything else is branding and collateral, but at the end of the day, you're the brand. And so even if you don't technically have put any work in creating a brand, it's done. The brand is you, right? And then really to take it a step further, what a brand really is a brand is what people say about you when you're not in the room. The brand is when another consumer that's worked with you, that's worked with, let's say, Scott, and then that person was going to recommend Scott to somebody else. What does that person say about working with Scott? Whatever that happens to be, great communication. He always, he made me feel good. He made this process less stressful. Those types of things, those are adjectives to describe what Scott's brand is, right? It's communication, it's community, it's friendship, it's ease, peace of mind. Like that is the brand of Scott. So that in its essence is what a brand actually is. It isn't the logo, it isn't the tagline, it isn't anything. In fact, those are the effect of what a brand is. So look at look at logos like Airbnb, Yelp, Facebook, all that other stuff. All of those are logos, and yes, people think like, oh, well, that's brand. That's just the branding, and that's what made the logo, right? You could have the worst freaking logo. You could have the worst freaking. I mean, look at Airbnb's logo. That is probably one of the worst freaking logos ever. But it's the Airbnb brand that makes that and
experience.
Yeah, it's exactly right. Like that's what makes it. And then think about, if you want to take it a little bit further, is brand is also mind share, right? Like that's really what it is. Like think about like when you need a tissue, how many people say Kleenex, right? And Kleenex isn't what they're called, but that's the brand that technically made tissues possible, right? That's mind share. Right? Look at Band-Aids, right? There's a lot of Band-Aids that aren't Band-Aids. Band-Aids is a brand, right? Think about like in the, a long time ago, I remember growing up when people talked about trucks, they called them Chevys, whether they were a Chevy or not. That's what they were called. And so that's where you take your brand, and that's where this is where you create mind share. So when people think about getting a mortgage, or people think about buying their house or selling their house, you want to be the person they think about, right? You want to be that mind share. You want to be that when I say soda, you say what? Coke, right? Or if I say shoes, running shoes, you say probably Nike, right? Like, so
Nike.
that is that mind share that goes on top of everything that we're talking about, and as it relates to brand. And that's how important brand is, because that's what's going to allow people to remember you. That's how you're going to be memorable. Because here's the thing, right? You got to understand, in our industry, we're very commoditized, right? Especially on the mortgage side, but on the real estate side too, right? It's a commodity when it comes down to it. How are you going to stand out? And you can't stand out by doing the same thing as everybody else, right? Doing the same type of marketing, doing the same type of thing. I'm going to be your neighborhood agent, stuff like that, right? Like all of that I get, but at the end of the day, you got to have something about you that's you, right? Because every human being is unique, but unfortunately, we've allowed our industry to become very commoditized, real estate and mortgage alike, so that you could just go and think that every agent's exactly the same, that every loan officer is exactly the same, and that just isn't the case. We know that. We know that working with a true professional agent is an entirely different experience than working with a crappy agent, right? We know that, right? We know that in this industry, but the consumer, at the end of the day, doesn't know that. And unfortunately, as an industry, we've done a very, very horrible job at articulating our value prop, especially on the real estate side, to the consumer, understanding that a consumer sometimes might be better off not using an agent, right? We should know, and that's something that we champion at Shred, that the best option for a consumer to have a seamless transaction, to have a great experience, and to have the most successful transaction, whether it's buying or selling a house, is to use a professional agent. Except that's the narrative that truly does not exist with the modern consumer today, right? So that's something that we need to change, and we all do that through creating brand.
You know what's funny about that? When you talk about logo, when you talk about branding, when I changed companies, this was 7-8 years ago. I went from one company to another, and I did this on purpose. I didn't tell anybody. All I did was change my logo on my website when I was in the mortgage business, and I didn't get asked one time if I moved companies, not once. For 6 months, finally 6 months down the road, somebody says, "Hey man, did you move companies? Like I noticed a different logo. So they were just playing around and saw something different, thought it looked different. But and so I always tell people this: if your customer has a great experience, and you can elaborate on this, if your customer has a great experience, they remember you as a person, as a name. If they have a bad experience, they'll say the company name. I don't know, it's really weird, right?
Yeah.
And so I would bet anybody on this call, if I was to call your last 10 clients and say, hey, what company does you work for? And I would use your name, and they would go, Jason Real Estate? Like they would know, So that's where you're building your brand and reminding people who you are on a regular basis is so powerful. So I don't, if that's kind of on the same lines as what you're talking about.
Yeah, no, and it's true, because this is something in fact, we just had this conversation twice, one with a group of agents and one with a group of loan officers. And the same thing is that, look, and again, we say this at the company's like sales meetings, and it's not, and we always say, hey, what we're about to say, you may not like to hear from a company level or an enterprise level, but it's going to be true. Is right. I don't come to work for you because it's Keller Williams. I could give a crap about Keller Williams. I could give a crap about Remax or give a crap about EXP. The consumer does not care, right? For the most part, now again, all markets are different. We have some very small, close-knit markets where if there is a local real estate office or something like that, that brand matters, right? But for the most part, I'm going to go work with Scott because he's Scott, because I like Scott,
correct?
Because I identify with Scott. Scott likes to snowboard. I like to snowboard, right? Scott likes to play golf. I like to play golf, right? I feel comfortable with Scott. Now, if Scott decided that he was a Keller Williams agent one day, and then next week he decides he wants to work with EXP because it's a better opportunity for him, or Berkshire Hathaway, or whatever it happens to be, I'm moving with Scott. Scott's my guy. It's not the brand, it's not the enterprise level brand. But now to take that like a little bit deeper, that helps that national brand. Now, sometimes I'm going to remember that, right? I'm going to remember that Scott is with Keller, right? So there's going to be, because if Scott does his job right, and right. Scott has a great brand, I'm going to relate that to him, right? But sometimes, that isn't the case. I just know Scott, and to Scott, to your point, yeah, I would say I honestly don't remember the company. And there's people that know my old mortgage company because of me, right? They're like, I can't remember what was that mortgage company that Jason, but Jason Frazier they remember, but they don't remember my mortgage company. Sometimes they do, but at least if anything, they knew that I used to work for a mortgage company, and they knew it was like Mason something or other. But then like, okay, yeah, it's Mason McDuffie, Jason Frazier, and that's how you build and we call that branding local to brand national, right? Because not everyone, you can't just go into a new market with a new brand and expect it to hit off. But instead, if you invest in that local expert, that one that has already created a local brand of their name in that town, in that community, then the name comes along naturally of whatever that national brand may happen to be. So to your point, absolutely, is like, you just don't know, and especially like you want to create that great experience so that you're memorable, that you stick out. And again, and honestly, it's not just enough to do that. Now is long term, you got to stay in front of those people. Long term, you got to be providing value. Long term, you got to be finding reasons to stay in front of people, because we're just living in a too noisy of a world. There's too much stuff going on, and we talked about that during the last mastermind that I did, right? With building awareness. Yeah, it's
unbelievable.
Got to stay in front.
Yeah, and you bring up a good point. So if you guys missed that, get with the loan officer that gives you these invites. Dude, that class you did, I still talk about it to this day. I'm like I want to get off the call and go, what is wrong with me? Why haven't I done that? Like, it's just the one easiest thing. So go back. I think it was 4 weeks ago or 6 weeks ago or something like that. It was with you about just using Facebook ads, man. I was like, oh my God, this is so stupid simple and so powerful. So
absolutely true. And the good thing is that like that, getting to that point, because part of that is like, what do I talk about? Who am I? Like, talk about your brand. So this is kind of, might have been better to do this one first than that one, but now you have both, right? So you basically have kind of, maybe this is the prequel to the session that we did last time. So we'll dive into it. So one is like, how do I create a brand? What does that even mean, right? Like how do I brand build, right? And so we have these 6 questions that we call like our framework, right? And this isn't something that we just developed. This is in conjunction with a lot of things, a lot of books that we've read, a lot of people that we've heard speak on branding, a lot of great people. So, just everywhere, right? So we're not one of those people that just that tries to pass off like everything that we give you is like unique content that we came up. But what we like to do at Shred is learn from all the experts, right? Because one is that's what we do. What you do is sell real estate or help people buy real estate, right? Like that's your job. And so when it comes down to it, like you don't have time to go to all the conferences. You don't have time to read all the books. You don't have time to listen to all the podcasts and watch all the videos. But that's what we do, right? And the reason we like to do that is we like to take the best to the best and also because like everything that we talk about here at Shred, it isn't that theory. It isn't a thesis. It's actually what we practice. I built a personal brand starting in 2016. Josh Pitts, who's my partner here, he built a personal brand going back to the end of last year. And I'll tell you one thing. So for example, people like, I'm not a licensed real estate agent. I'm not a licensed loan officer, but I will tell you from the beginning, from basically mid 2016 to the end of 2017, I want to say funneled, but I basically handed off over $5 million in transactions to loan officers and real estate agents just by my personal brand. I had a real estate agent saying, hey, and again, this is how powerful a brand could be, is they said, hey, I know you're in California. I have someone that needs a loan officer. Can you help them? And thinking that I would help them because I was a licensed loan officer, which I was not, right? And I said no, so I gave it to one of my loan officers. And if for some reason it was a state that I wasn't licensed in or my company wasn't licensed in, then I gave it to whatever network I had of a loan officer there. Same on the real estate side. Just because of my background in venture capital and technology startup, I've helped about 4 or 5 of the people I used to work with find agents. I connected. I went and did the due diligence. Usually I already knew an agent in that area, but if not, I said, hey, give me somebody. And so I've helped loan officers connect with agents. I've helped agents connect with loan officers for selling and buying. I've had loan officers that have had, vacation properties or investment properties in other states saying, hey, I need an agent. I don't know anybody in that state. And they would come to me because of that trust that I know that I would. And again, I didn't make a dime off of any of this stuff, right? This was just me trying to connect people, but it's all based off of the brand I built. So if you don't, and again, look at over $5 million in transactions, right? Think about that, $5 million in transactions doing no marketing that you would think you would need to do as an agent or a loan officer in order to get deals, right? So just imagine what you could do with these same principles and these same frameworks when you're actually in that profession, when you're an actual licensed real estate agent or you're an actual licensed loan officer. Think about what you could do doing the same type of things that we're going to talk about here today, what I've talked about in the past. All about being a practitioner. This isn't theory. This isn't thesis. This is like, maybe it works, maybe it doesn't. It does. Get over it. It works. So let's get everything out of the way and let's look at that stuff. So first, so we come up with these 6 questions just to kind of help you write down and conceptualize what your brand actually is. And the first question is, what do you stand for? So in this flyer that I have here, or this little handout, and again, I could give it to Scott, and Scott could give this one out to everybody if you haven't already. But basically, and here it's a little joke. I said freedom, peace in the galaxy, little Star Wars reference coming up here. But what you want to think about is the virtues of your brand. What do you stand for, right? The service and the value. Like what is it that you stand for as a person, right? What do you stand for as a real estate agent? What is it about you? What do you stand for? And think about that, write that down. And again, you can go, and this is the beauty of frameworks and workflows, is that everyone's going to be different. As you write that, what do I stand for? If you have to look at yourself in the mirror and ask yourself that question, and believe me, that's a powerful thing. I try it. If you've never done that before, and look, I'm as cynical as the next guy. So like a lot of this stuff, meditation, all that other crap, like it's hard for me because I'm very cynical, right? It's hard for me to do that. But when I really started looking myself in the mirror and asking myself these questions, like it really opens yourself up to really kind of just thinking about things. So what do you stand for as a person, right? So Jason Frazier, I'm looking at myself, what do I stand for? Like, okay, I stand for people not getting screwed over by crappy agents, or people not getting screwed over by crappy loan officers, right? I'm thinking about in terms of shred and what I do. I term of like I don't want people getting screwed over by crappy systems, right? Or crappy advice or crappy marketing because it's easy because we're the low hanging fruit. Like I want the champion, the local expert. That's what I stand for. I stand for EQ over IQ. I stand for community and collaboration. I stand for being first and being fast. That's me, right? So I'm writing these things down. Now, again, as you're asking these questions and writing stuff down, you'll start thinking about other things and writing more things down. There's no structure to this, right? This is the structure, but you could write down 5 pages of what you stand for and then start drilling some of those things. And then some things you're like, that was a little bit too much overview. Let's kind of let's nail that down a little bit. Let's get a little bit deeper. But that's where you start. What do you stand for, right? Then you go, what do you stand against, right? And this is like, like, are you against wasting people's time, bad communication, leaving clients uninformed, right? What do you stand against? Look, we all know that in our industry, and I know we like to put up the almost like the parallel of what like the big blue wall is, when someone does bad in your industry and you kind of like not want to talk about it. But look, guys, let's just be honest. There's a lot of crappy agents out there, right? There's a lot of crappy people in our industry, and that's why we have the perception that we do, right? So to me, like, especially now, look, on a marketing level, on a service provider level that serves our industry, that truly serves our industry, I stand against all the crappy solutions and systems out there. I won't even call them solutions. I stand against all those crappy people that are basically preying on those that are going through tough times in their business, right? Selling houses, buying houses, getting leads and stuff like that, that say, hey, look, for my $3,500 program, you're going to be able to do X, Y, and Z. And like here's the secret. Guess what? These programs, a lot of them that you see out there, are not all of them. There's some great people out there that are actually adding value. And so I'm not going to paint with a wide brush, but you'll see some people out there. Guess what? If those things were great, then everybody would be doing them. All of these people would be so successful, but they just don't. Sometimes they're just bad. So I stand against those people. I'll even call them charlatans that are out there that don't really add any value, right? That really aren't helping to grow your business, that don't give any type of free advice, right? That everything's a pay to play, everything. And again, I understand value as much as the next person, right? And charging for your time and what you've developed. But we not to go back to Gary Vee again, but Gary Vee gives out a lot of free stuff. I use everything that
I don't know that he sells anything. I don't know that he sells anything, ever has.
He's got books, he's got wine, he's got shoes, right?
True.
But,
yeah,
but
he sells
collectively,
that stuff,
as far as like what let's say if I look at me personally, I'm a huge Gary Vee fan. If I look at all the money I spent, like I bought a couple, when he came out with his shoes, because I like how it made me feel. I like the snakes on the shoes. I like how the way they look.
I did too, man. I did.
They're actually some of my most comfortable shoes, right? And then I add his books that I've bought. So his books, I haven't paid really for anything other than like my trip down to speak at his conference. I mean, I'll be happy to pay for that, but I didn't have to pay for a ticket. Like he gave me the ticket for free. Whereas other people, when you speak at their conference, they charge the speakers to have to buy a ticket, right? Like some places actually do that. But Gary Vee, he paid for the ticket. So if I look at all the money that I spent on Gary Vee like stuff, it's probably like, I don't know, maybe like $600. But have I gotten $600 of value from listening to all his content? 100%. I would not be where I'm at today. I would not. Just recently, not a couple months ago, I was paid thousands of dollars to speak at a small event, thousands of dollars. So yes, had it not been for Gary Vee, I never would have been there. Right. So yes, I have that $600 that I paid for shoes and his books and stuff like that. Yes, that's far gotten ROI, right? So you got to give value. So think about that when you stand against. I stand against people that are only charging for what they do, but actually give value. And look, we as agents, you guys know that you give a lot of value without any hope of getting paid sometimes, right? You're driving people around the houses, you're spending time, you're taking people out to lunch, you're spending your own money for a lot of these things that you'll never get reimbursed with unless there's a deal that happens, right? So you know that you're going to give value outside of just getting paid for it, right? So again, what do you stand for? What do you stand against, right? And then that takes us into number 3, and that's who do you serve, right? Who do you serve? Who are your perfect clients? Who do you want to work with, right? And this gets into something that maybe on a future class we could get into creating a customer avatar, but that's really what this pays in, is understanding like, who's your perfect client? Who do you serve? Who do you like? Is it people, veterans? right? Is it people, veterans that are, selling a house, buy a VA loans, whatever? Is it first-time home buyers? Is it single moms, single dads? Is it people with low credit, people with challenging credit, right? Is it that perfect A-paper client, right? Like, who do you serve? Who do you want to work with? Who is your tribe? Who are the people that you actually do want to do business with, right? Knowing that helps you develop the brand, right? Write these things down. Understand, like, what am I for? What am I against? Who am I serving? Answers to all of these questions will help you identify with your brand, because guess what? Generally, you like to work with people like yourself, right? Like Josh's brand was, he was that when he first started his like personal brand back in the day, doing loans, he called himself the outdoor loan officer, the outdoor LO. And the reason why is because he likes to hike, he likes to rock climb, he likes to snowboard, he likes to be outdoors. We're in Utah. Outdoors is a thing out here, right? Like, so that's his thing. And then guess who his clients, the commonality was? People that like to do those things, right? So that's his brand. That's part of who he is, right? So, okay, now, so understand who you want to serve, right? Then understand, what do those people want from you? It's not enough to just say that person wants a good experience selling their house, right? It's not enough to say they want a good experience when they buy their house. Yes, what does that want from them? Someone to hold their hand, right? Some clients want someone to only tell them that they're right, to only tell them that the good stuff. Some of them need really someone to just hold their hand and be that person, be that shoulder to cry on, to be that person that's going to reassure them. Some people want that. What do they want from you? Do they want just a bulldog negotiator, right? Like, I want that at the cheapest price possible. I don't care if you have to go in there like scorched earth. Like, that's what I want from you, right? And again, not every person isn't for everybody. I know some agents that I've seen. So like, when going back to the transactions I've referred some people that I worked with, and I saw the agent, and I interviewed each one of these agents before I referred them, because I know the personality of these people. And I hear this person, I'm like, oh, like this person, like I had an agent that was like, the agent was like, oh, well, I'm this, I'm that, I'm that. I'm like, oh, it's too much I, because the problem with that is I know this person is not going to meld well with that, right? That person wants someone that's going to be 100% behind them, not that the agent knows everything. Now, again, you're the expert, you're the professional, and some people need that, but some people want to drive. And if both people want to drive, that's probably going to be some of that. And so at the end of the day, you need to understand that. So understand what that person writes from you. It's not always a binary answer, meaning like on or off or yes or no. Sometimes there's a little bit of gray area. So understand, what do these people want from you, especially when you go back to who you serve, right? First time home buyers, what they want maybe some referrals to people that understand like DPAs, or you need to do some credit repair or whatever it happens to be, things about college student loans, right? For new parents, people that are downsizing, getting job transfers. I know someone that niches, a real estate agent that niches 100% in divorces, right? They became an expert on what happens when people need to sell their house when there's a divorce involved. And so that's all she does. And she does a great job on it. And she's known for that. That's her niche. That's her brand, right? Because she knows it's challenging. She knows a lot of people, but she also helps. And she's decided that, like, look, if I can get involved in it, then good, look, great. Sometimes divorces are, bad, right? Like there's a lot of back and forth and stuff like that. So it's not always a great emotional transaction to be a part of it. But sometimes someone needs things to just go smoothly, and so that's where she found a niche, and that's what she is. So if we take that niche in particular and say, what does that person want from you? They want a very emotional time in their life to be a lot less problematic when it comes to splitting assets or something like a house, selling a house, to make sure that everyone is served, right? So that's the thing. And so understand that, if just giving an example of what do they want from you. 5.
So on that topic, really quick, you think I don't know, like, what's your opinion on when somebody goes, that's my like as you read through all these different niches of what you could do or what you stand for, I feel people don't give it enough time. They start out and there's no instant gratification, so then they go, I'm going to go over here, and that, man, I didn't get anything there, I'm going to go over here, and they just don't give it enough time. What would you say on something like that? Because you guys, like, I think, because perfect example is Agent Mastermind. I did it for 12 months straight with very little success. And then all of a sudden, it blew up. 12 months, every single week, 52 weeks a year, I did it, and with very little success, knowing that, I'm giving. I know if I can help one person today on this call, I feel like I've done something good for the community, good for the industry, right?
Yeah.
I think people just don't give it enough time to get themselves out there.
Yeah, so you definitely know. So yeah, our industry in general is very ROI, instant ROI. Our industry is very like, hey, I ran a Facebook ad for 30 days and nothing happened, so therefore Facebook sucks. No, your ad sucked, right? Your strategy sucked. So, something like, look, I'm not about, look, I assume that you're part of this mastermind because you want to be the best at what you want to do. Like when I think I told this to Scott, like when I'm on something, I didn't come here to help you be average. I didn't come here to help you give up. I didn't come here there's plenty of that. Look, I'll just give you my own example. I started the Agent Marketer back in March, which was my online coaching and training and stuff like that. We hit it hard and came out of the gates and had a lot of signups. But over time, it kind of fizzled out a little bit, right? Like I had my good core group of people, but for the most part, trying to bring people in and whatever. And what I was, and again, what I found out is that what I was offering really wasn't necessarily what everyone wanted, or was maybe a little bit too much for everybody. And so that's why we're kind of revamping. But if I look at where I started off when I went on my own and left my mortgage company to do my own thing, to have my own brand and everything, that was March of last year. Now we're here in almost in November, end of October, and that we're finally hitting our stride. Now, obviously, I teamed up with Josh, and we did that in April, but we have the May, and then so from May to October, like we've really hit our stride. And like I said, we have 3 of the top 4 lenders as clients. We have multiple other clients in the service industry. We're being asked to speak at all these conferences. We're getting paid to speak. We're getting paid to be. We're not even like where other media companies and I won't name their names, but other media companies are having to buy tickets and buy booth time and buy all that stuff. We're getting paid to actually do that stuff because we've built, it's finally hitting our stride of everything that we've built the last 18 months individually and coming together, and we found the right connection. So if you look at where things were, and it was a struggle during that time, right? Like as far as all that other good stuff, it was a struggle. So to your point, Scott, as far as we're very instant ROI. If I would have said okay, I gave this 3 months, now it's not working, so I'm doing something else.
Yeah, right.
You just never know. Like just not to invoke Gary Vee again, but when he talked about when he started the wine library TV on YouTube and saying he had maybe a few a few subscribers, a few viewers, that nobody, he did it for years before he started speaking. And people think they look at him now and he's saying all this stuff. They're like, oh, well, people don't understand his backstory and understand he always likes to say, so he's like, I ate shit for 6 years to finally get to the point of where I could do this stuff. Right? You got to put in the time, and when you niche into something, it confines you, but that's a good thing, right? Because usually when you have expansion, unfortunately, it dilutes your brand. It dilutes what you're doing, what you're focused on, and all that other thing. There's a reason why Uber is just cars, right? There's not Uber, hotels, and other people did that stuff. But if they would have expanded, it dilutes their core brand of what Uber was about, or Lyft, or something else, right? It's about transportation. It's about ease. It's about seamlessness. That's the thing. So I think a lot in our industry give up too much. And again, not judging anyone's personal, some maybe you have a sick child, a spouse, family member, someone, life happens, right? So it's not about judging anyone. It's just saying, as a whole, I've seen people give up knowing that they didn't know that next month was going to be the month that they hit it, right? They didn't know that next few, those were the things. It's easy, especially in our industry. You're like, our industry is not easy. It's not easy being a real estate agent, right? I'm not telling you guys anything you don't know. It's not easy doing what our industry does, right? And so it's easy to give up. It's especially when you're commission based, right? When you have to produce in order to eat, to feed your family, to pay bills. It is tough. It is a grind, but there's too many success stories around you. There's too many people that you could look to, especially not just in business, but in our industry as a whole. People that get down to that last $100 on their credit card. People get down to that last $10 in their bank account. There's too many stories around to where if they would have given up, they wouldn't have been around for that turn, and where now they're very successful. Now they're speaking to people about it and everything else. So yes, absolutely. It happens too much in our industry, but you have to give it time. You have to, and only you could to answer that question. But you do, like, if you only have like a 2 month runway, then you have a 2 month
It's gonna be
runway,
tough.
right? But
Yeah,
then what
yeah.
you do is you have that
Better
as
start
like
talking to people.
you
Right.
do what you need to do to pay bills, but then don't lose that. And then once eventually that comes up, then you could go into that. So,
Yeah.
number 5 is getting into the competition a little bit. Who else gives them what you need? Like, who's your competition? Who else has a brand like yours, right? Again, brand, not branding, brand like yours. What, how do they work? When do they work? Understand what they have that's better than you, and understand what you have that's better than them, right? This is where you're going to go into a little opposition research, right? Like, who's your competitors? Who are you competing against, right? And then really understand their brand, really do research and understanding them. Or, again, it's too simple of an answer not here to, oh, well, because they're discount, because their rates are low. I know so many loan officers, their origination doesn't dip regardless of rates, right? I know plenty of real estate agents that business doesn't dip regardless of market conditions, right? Oh, low inventory, guess what? They did just as many deals this month as they did last month, right? Our
Right.
industry is
Right.
a trillion-dollar industry, a multi-trillion-dollar industry, right? Like, people buy. I mean,
Yep.
if you look at the average of the last like 5 or 6 years, right? What are we at? We're at what, like high fours, like mid $5 million in transactions, right? Like, as far as housing go in the industry, it fluctuates a little bit, but guess what? Those top producers are still doing deals. There's a reason for that,
Isn't
right?
that
Like, it
funny?
isn't
Yeah.
just like,
Yeah.
not everyone suffers. Some people do when they don't have brand, when they're not hitting their database, when they're not staying, creating that mind share of who they are and how they can help them. And that's the thing, is that, look, people still do business. And guess what? In the Great Recession, people were still buying and selling houses, right? I knew agents that, yes, because we're talking about a global recession. Yes, their business dipped off a little bit, but they didn't go off the deep end. They weren't like close to insolvency, right? They weren't about to declare bankruptcy, right? Like, they still did business. Same with lenders. Yes, it was harder to come by, not as much in the inventory, but they still did okay because of that. And that's the thing, is we need to understand, is like, there's always business, especially ours, with all the competition and everything else. There's always business, but truly understand who you're competing against, right? It's not always rates, right? It's not always inventory. Sometimes it's branding, right? Sometimes it's not because that agent does, billboards, right? Look. So here's an example. Perfect example. I had a meeting with an agent. This was a few years ago, and she asked me to come out. And she was actually a Keller agent. Went to her office, sat down with her in a conference room for a couple hours, talk about it, and everything she was telling me was basically, she was looking at top producers in her market, saying, I want to do this, but she was trying to just copy tactic for tactic. She was trying to copy, oh, they have a WordPress website, I need a WordPress website. I was like, you don't,
Mm.
because that's why I know I
Right.
have an agent that uses a cheap Squarespace site, and he does about $150 million in transactions a year, right? Like, that's the thing, is like, you can't copy tool for tool and tactic for tactic. Because when I found out that
Right.
agent, I'm like, guess what? I know that other agent. That agent's 24/7. That agent doesn't
Yeah.
clock out at 5. You, my dear, clock out at 5, right? And
Right.
then other top producer, I know she doesn't clock out at 5. I know she's 24/7. And again, you have to run your business how you run your business. I'm not saying, but if you have to decide for yourself when you want to get to a certain level, if you want to be a top producer, sometimes there's sacrifice. It's not just tools. It's not just having a WordPress website. It's just not having a certain type of CRM. That's why that CRM question kills me every single time I see it in Facebook,
Me too, man.
because
Kills
like,
me. Yeah. Yeah.
it has to work like you do, right? Yes, the easy answer is to say something like, the best CRM is the one you use, but the best CRM is the one that works like you do, right? Like, people will mention like, oh, well, I use LionDesk, and I know I could find 10 people that freaking hate LionDesk and think it's the shittiest thing around. I could find another 10 people that think LionDesk is the best CRM ever invented. It has to work the way you do. And that, again, goes back to the competitors, is understanding, like, how are they doing business? How are they attracting clients? What is it about their brand? What is it sticks out with your brand? And take off your blinders, take off your agent hat, put on your consumer hat, and see what attracts them to them, and understand what you could do to attract yourself to you, right? And this goes back to the other previous 4 questions, but you have to understand who you're competing against to help you understand how to formulate your brand to compete against them. Because that takes us into the final question of this framework, and is that, why do people choose them? right? What is it about them? Why are your prospects? Because look, I assume as an agent, you have lost a listing to another agent, right? I assume as an agent, you had buyers that you talked to and you drove around, and then when it got down to it, you realized, okay, they decided to use an agent that was either a friend or family member or all that gets, look, we've all done with that. And there's no really way to, to fight against that whole deal. Obviously you could have the broker buyer agreement, stuff like that to, protect yourself a little bit. But at the end of the day, you can't protect against that agent that comes and swoop ins because there's a family friend or some other stuff, or that agent said, oh, your house is listed way under what it should be. I know that we've all had that, right? So understand, why do they choose them? Sometimes and you'll know this as you build your brand, as you decide who you want to work with, you'll know that some people are very price conscious, right? Some people have certain needs. Perfect example, when I moved out from here from California to Utah last year, right? As far as I know the house I wanted, I know that and I knew the time frame I was on. I could have had my agent probably bang on them a little bit to get a cheaper price. But at the end of the day, I was looking at risk reward, and the price wasn't the ultimate decider for me. It was the neighborhood, it was the culture, it was the ease, it was the less stress on me knowing having to go through a bid and whatever. So I decided, even though I thought I could probably get that house for maybe like $4,000 less, maybe, $3,000 less. But I decided, you know what? Do I want the house? Yes. Right. And I had a conversation with my agent. Do I want that house? Yes. Do I want to live in that neighborhood? Yes. Do I want to live on that street? Yes. So am I fine with paying that? Yes. So going full offer. Check this out. They agreed, signed the contract. Later they got another offer that was a few $1,000s more than what I had come in first, but we had already done. So that's the thing. Had I been about, hey, bang on them a little bit, you know what I mean? So this goes back to understanding who you want to work with, right? If they're price conscious, right? Or you want to hire people that just really know what they want. Some people that really are just like, look, we've all seen it, right? Like, you've been an agent long enough to know, like, and it's funny to me, right? We all watch, HGTV and House Hunters and see like, oh, well, that seems like pricey for, or the worst part is like, we know all that consumers is. I don't know if you guys ever watched tiny homes. My wife and I, we just like looking at what kind of cool things they could create with like such a small space. But what we love is the people that are looking at the tiny homes and they walk into it and they're like, man, this is really small. And I'm thinking, you're looking for a freaking tiny home. What are you expecting, right? So as an agent, you've dealt with those unrealistic peoples. So that goes back to, why do those people choose them? And that also takes you back through kind of the rest of the journey, working with the people that you want to, but then also going to the competition. Why is the people choosing the competition? Or why are people deciding to go to Redfin as opposed to you? Why are people going to Zillow Instant Offers instead of you, or to Open Door, or to OfferPad? Right? Like, why are these people going to that, and really understanding it? Don't just scoff at it. Just don't dismiss it offhand. Look, iBuyer is a thing right now, right? iBuyer is a real thing, and there is a market for it right now. It's not everyone. It will never take 100% of the market share, but it's going to take a chunk, right? And we're all dealing with the same pie with multiple slices. Now, as that pie gets smaller, when you take like Phoenix Metro and you have Open Door that's taken 10% of the market share, that's 10% of transactions that don't go to agents anymore. Something to think about, right? But brand yourself on why you're the better choice, why choosing you as a local expert, why is that going to be? And you do this, you start off with this. And once you'll find out, as you ask yourself these questions and answer them, you will have your basically your conceptual document of creating a brand. Because then what you do is when you answer these questions, you just have a bunch of answers. Now it's easier to create a brand off of that. What do you want that to represent? Everything that you do, your collateral, your consistency, colors, everything else is representing the answers that you have from this document.
So Lisa said, did you say iBuyer? Is that what you?
Did I say iBuyer?
Yeah. Yep. Okay. All right. You know what's funny about this, brother? And I talk to people all the time about this particular brand thing. And man, when you're talking about CRM, when you're talking about social media, I think it's just almost creative avoidance to keep you from doing what you should be doing, which is picking up the phone, having conversations, going deep with those that already know, like, and trust you. There's so much low-hanging fruit there, and if you just stay in front of them and you, I call it complete the circle, where you got traffic, you got conversion, you got follow-up, and you got call to action. If you're literally focused on, like, asking for the business from those that know, like, and trust you, asking for referrals from, like, an Excel spreadsheet works great. How long ago did I talk to them, right? Oh, it's been a week, it's been a month, it's been 3 months, it's been 3 years, whatever it is. If you haven't talked to them, there's no way they're, one, going to remember you, and two, you can't ask for business if you're not talking to them. CRM systems are all about shooting out emails. Yeah, emails work, but it's not a conversation where you can actually get something of value, like get a referral from. You got to pick up the phone and call them. So I'm just big on having those conversations, talking to people, and making sure that they remember who you are and what you do for a living. That's the real secret.
Oh, and it's true. And here, I'll give these agents, and look, agents, I'm thinking this probably shouldn't be a surprise to any of you, but so I was talking with a company that goes through and looks at databases and looks at basically analyzes your CRM and stuff like that. But check this out. They did it. It was around like 5,800. It was close to 6,000. I think it was somewhere like that. 58. Let's just call it 5,800. 5,800 agents going through their databases. What they found out is that about almost 70% of those databases did not use them a second time. Meaning, and not because they didn't like the agent, because you just left it off to a drip marketing, or you didn't do what Scott said. You didn't do the calls, you didn't do the follow-ups, you didn't have the spreadsheet that told you when to do certain things, right? Like, or to keep, because they think just because you did a great job that you got them their house, their dream home, and all that other stuff, but you didn't do anything else, right? That doesn't create that mind share. And so close to 70%. Guess what? They got into the ecosystem again of buying or selling a house, buying investment property, doing something else. They didn't use that same agent. They used somebody else. Not only that, but it was like 35% did it after they already talked to that agent again, and that agent just let that conversation drop off. And so think about that's a lot of money. That is a lot of money.
4,000. Oh my God, dude! This thing is 4,063. That's $812 million if it at a $200,000 average loan size.
Yeah, that's real money, people.
That's real money.
When you're not creating a brand and creating that mind share and being in touch with them.
Just ask.
Yeah. You just, and it's not being, look, some of it's luck, some of it's, bad, whatever. Some of it's timing. Right time, right place. But look, not all of that is that, right? Let's just say that's 10% of that. And I think that's being genuine, right? You're still looking at 60%. You're still looking at a lot of money left on the table that you should have been able to get. And that's where I'm saying is that doesn't matter what's happening in the market. That's a lot of money that even in good times that we're just leaving on the table.
It's there. Yeah, there for the taking. Brother, man, thank you so much, dude. Does anybody have any questions while we got this awesome dude here, Jason here from Shred Media? Anybody have any questions at all about branding, where you're at, what you're doing, what's trying to get you there, what's keeping you from getting there? There's some good ones you already answered, but if no further, usually a ton of them come in after that. So, man, dude, congratulations on what you're accomplishing. You're like living, breathing exactly what you're talking about, which is really cool. Keep up the good work. Can't wait to see where you guys are at. Another 6 months would be just going to be amazing. So anything I can do to help you guys.
I appreciate it. Yeah. Always happy to come on and do anything to, talk. Cause again, part of our core, core value, core pillar, principle, whatever, whatever you want to call it of Shred is to champion the local expert. Look, both, more so on the mortgage side, but on the real estate side too, we have a lot of outside noise, a lot of outside disruption. And look, I know disruption is an overused word, but I use it because literally if I say it, everyone knows what I'm talking about. Look, on agents, you're competing against iBuyers now, even though most major brokerage has an iBuyer solution. I'll say this, I know it's not really on to the brand part, but I will say, I was there at Inman when they announced when these like Open Door and all these other people were announcing their iBuyers. I saw the room collectively laugh and scoff at them and say consumers would never do that. And here we are 4 years later, and it's the absolute office, right? So we need to stop just being a protectionist, but we need to start going on offense. So if you're a local real estate agent, look at getting with investors and having your own iBuyer program, because what you'll find out, and this is what I've seen for the people that do this, what you'll find out is that one is you're servicing your client to their needs, not yours, to theirs. But what you'll find out is that gives you a chance to truly educate, that if they use you to traditionally, and this is where we're getting, look, we're using the word traditionally now, and usually that's the code word for old, but traditionally selling your house is that you're going to net more by a lot than going with an iBuyer. When you just scoff at something and you don't play in that ecosystem, you don't get that chance to educate that client. The client's doing yourself. And here's the thing that I don't want to get off on a tangent on iBuyers, but here's a stat that you probably don't know. In the Phoenix Metro, which is like ground zero for iBuyers, check this out. 40% of sellers will get an iBuyer quote before they contact an agent. 40%.
Wow.
That's a lot. Now, 70% overall will get an iBuyer quote, but that's including contacting an agent, but 70% overall in less than 4 years, right, of time of this model even being something. So that should be something that every agents know about or should understand, is saying, look, instead of just like putting my head in the sand or fighting against it, go on the offense, have your own thing, because that way you'll find out that you can actually get lead. What does every agent want? They want listings. They want seller leads. This is how you do it. Right now in the consumer mind, iBuyers is a trend. iBuyers is a thing. Have your own program so that you can get in front of them, explain to them, yeah, you can do it this way. This is what my investor pays, and this is kind of what a Zillow offer and everyone else does, but this is what traditional agent. And once they see that, oh, wow, this might be 11, 12% transaction, or a 5% to 6% transaction, I think I'm going to do that because it's more important to net more, but you got to get in front of them to have those conversations. Have that as part of your brand as well.
I got to, so hey, how do people get a hold of you? So how do people follow you, get a hold of you? What's the best way? Shred Media on Facebook?
Yeah, so yeah, Shred Media on Facebook. We have a Facebook group which is called Shred Media AI for Attention and Influence. You could join that Facebook group. We have an online community. Be part of the Facebook group first. That's the funnel. I don't say funnel, but that's basically the path to getting. It doesn't cost any money or anything, but that's the path to getting into our online community. Or you could Jason Frazier, Google, Facebook, shredmedia.com. We have multiple podcasts as well. So we're not hard to find.
Cool. And somebody, Lisa's wanting to know, can you define what iBuyer means?
Oh, okay. Oh, so all right. So if you don't know what so iBuyer is, so you could call them instant buyers, you could call them internet buyers, you could call them investor buyers. It has different meanings for different people, but think of like, we all seen like the We Buy Ugly Houses, right? Or We Buy Your House for Cash. Look, it's not a new model. The difference is that there's private equity and Wall Street money behind it now with better marketing. That's what that is. That's what an iBuyer is. It's the investor buyers that will pay cash for the houses, give them an instant quote. Zillow offers, just Google Zillow offers, and that will give you an idea on what they're doing. But that's the thing. That's the world we're living in, because sometimes, sometimes for the majority of the time, it's a bad deal for the person that's selling their house. But sometimes, and I can speak from personal experience, right? That sometimes, depending on if you have HOA, insurance, how long it stays on the market, sometimes it makes sense to do an iBuyer for the consumer, especially if there's like a death in the family, if it's an estate, maybe if they got a job transfer or something like that, and so that netting doesn't matter. There are some legitimate times to where that makes sense, but for the most part, it isn't in the best interest of the consumer. So understand these, educate yourself so you could use it. I'm telling you, like, I know agents that are doing this themselves, and I have a podcast episode. It's a Jason Cassidy, ShredX. I think it's episode 54 that I had on the ShredX podcast with Jason Cassidy, who's an agent with a top agent with Compass in San Diego. He started his own buyer, and you'll find that he gets a lot of leads from this now. So that he can get in front of the sellers and educate them, right? That's the thing. Look, if you guys want an easy way to get seller leads,
iBuyerWithScott.com or something like this.
Do it. Hey, man. Yeah, that's the thing. Hey. Do it. Run some blogs, but that's the thing. You guys want listing leads? You guys want seller leads? Do an iBuyer program. Educate them, and maybe sometime, and then work that out with your investors. So that way, instead of making nothing, you make something. But more often than not, 90% of the time, you're going to be able to educate that client. Maybe it's 95% of the time. Educate that client to go with you. But if anything, you're giving them. You're not scoffing on it. You're not being like every other agent in the industry. You're servicing your client to their needs and giving them education.
All right, last question for you, brother. This is way off topic. This is a Gary Vay question. Where are you at on TikTok?
So we're on TikTok. So Shred Media, you could
You
follow.
are?
I
Okay,
actually, well,
okay, okay,
so Josh is on there. I'm on there as a snarky marketer. That's another thing, kind of a brand that I have, and
okay.
that's me just taking
All right.
shots at the industry and just having fun.
Okay,
But I'm the snarky
okay.
marketer on TikTok. Now, TikTok's audience, it's just like Snapchat, right? Like now,
Yeah,
Snapchat back in the day when Snapchat rose and it was mostly kids and stuff like that. However,
yep.
the demographic on Snapchat on the higher end is in the 20s, right? And that's something that I go on. So honestly, like for me, if I'm a loan officer or real estate agent, what I'm doing on TikTok is I'm doing fun content. Again, TikTok isn't like
Fun.
Instagram stories or anything like that. Do
Right,
skits, do
right.
stories, lip sync, stuff like that. It's easy to lose yourself. It's a guilty pleasure of mine to be on TikTok because it's just fun to watch some of the stuff. But you can find ways to do it to get in front of people to start creating your brand with that demographic that eventually will get to that
It's
point
gonna
of
go.
buying or
It's
selling
gonna
your
go up.
house. So
Hmm.
on TikTok,
Interesting.
I'm always for looking at the programs, but at the end of the day, are different platforms. But at the end of the day, you got to spend your time on where you're going to get the most
Wait,
bang
wait
for
for me. Absolutely.
your time that you're
Yeah.
doing. But I wouldn't sleep on TikTok. I wouldn't just dismiss it offhand. I'd get on it,
Yeah, just
check it out,
yeah,
have some fun
yeah,
on it. Just
yeah.
just create something, because guess what? And this is the same with Snapchat. I built my brand off Snapchat. I got deals for my company on Snapchat. And the reason why is, guess what? Parents are on TikTok watching what their kids are doing.
There you go. There we go. Thank you so much, Jason. Keep up the good work, man. I appreciate you. Thank you so much for your time today, man. And I hope you guys got something out of today. If you guys want, I'm going to share the flyer on the private Facebook group, which I included the link down below in the chat box. It's facebook.com/groups/Agent Mastermind. Jason, I think you're in there already. So feel free to answer any questions you guys might have. It's a great place to collaborate. There's almost, I think, 19,600 in there. You have to have an agent profile or be listed as a real estate agent to come in. That's all I let in. So is real estate agent. So make sure it says something about you being a real estate agent in your profile. Believe it or not, I see it to a lot of them that don't. So please fix that first and foremost. And Jason, thank you so much, man.
Branding.
Honored, branding, man. Honored to call you a friend. And man, just keep up the good work, brother. Thank you so much.
Scott, thank you very much, brother.
All right, guys. See you same time, same place next week. I got to read you a really quick, Jason. You might want to be in for this one, and I'll make the intro to this guy. Mark. So Mark's going to be on. He's been in a transform. So in the last 10 years, Mark has created and grown a real estate company and accumulating over 200 rental properties and flipping over $100 million in real estate. So he's going to be on next week. Might be a good contact for you. Just a super nice guy. Great story. He's going to map it out for us. I got a ton of great questions for him, and he'll be on the class. So see you guys same time, same place next week. Well, and have a great day, everybody. See you, bud.
Goodbye.
Whoops. There we go.